So what? UCLA couldn't get it done at Purdue. At least the women are going to beat USC, right? Right? Corey, you're going to beat them, right? Oh, what happened?
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. And hey, it's your team every day. All right, let's go over that brutal loss the Bruins took, unfortunately, to lose not just the Big Ten regular season title, not just to lose the Big Ten tournament 1 seed, but to lose the number 1 overall seed in the latest reveal by the NCAA selection committee. So, barring some crazy turn of events, UCLA will not be the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, right? It would take a Texas loss. It would take a UCLA two-step to go beat USC in the Big Ten tournament, get revenge of one of the 2 losses, and even then, I don't think that gives them a number 1 overall seed. But the Bruins have quite the resume and have done just a mighty job, so they're still leaning on one of the 4 1 seeds. It would be pretty sucky if they don't get a 1 seed, all right? The season is not over. The National Player of the Year award is over. Okay, I tried my best to stir up the pot a little bit. I stirred it. I really did. I threw all my mights, my intellectual might, and every analytical number I could to steer the conversation towards Lauren Betts and the credit she deserved for being as dominant as she's been on 2 sides of the ball. But when the lights were the brightest and it became her and JuJu Watkins, UCLA and USC, to this point, it's been JuJu Watkins and the Trojans who have walked away with stellar victories against UCLA, and the Bruins have fallen short. And I thought they would play much better at home. No, they played a little fearful. They turned over the basketball, and just about every Bruin on the floor played as bad as they could. Now, it doesn't mean they just coughed up the basketball, but the shooting numbers weren't there. The best shooters weren't shooting like they could. Even Kiki Rice wasn't having her best night in a UCLA loss where they gave up 80 points at home to USC. A game where the Bruins came out flat, down 11 early, got it close. When JuJu sat out the beginning of the second quarter, is that a chance where UCLA got much closer? No. USC extended the lead, and then they led by 11 at halftime. Next thing you know, or 14, I should say. Next thing you know, in the third quarter, UCLA gets close and a strong USC close, and they're still up close to double figures, if not that, heading into the fourth. And then UCLA was just absolutely taken apart in the fourth quarter, where you got JuJu staring down the camera, slapping 5 with Cheryl Miller down the first row, pretty much just, walking as confident as USC felt coming into that game. That is how confident they felt, and UCLA has just not done the same types of things in these 2 games against USC. Whatever that resolve was against South Carolina, other than the fact that they're just much better than them, they have not shown that against USC. Here's a troubling trend I've somewhat noticed with Lauren Betts and UCLA in games against teams who they played before. So UCLA against Pac-12 opponents, against Oregon, Washington, and USC twice. All those teams who have, for the most part, seen Lauren Betts and UCLA in the last couple of years since she's been a Bruin. Let's take a look at some of those numbers. Why don't we? All right. Here are Lauren Betts' numbers against USC in a 2-week period. She has shot 10 for 24. And normally you'd be like, okay, that's similar to what JuJu shoots, right? Well, as a center, taller, more dominant with great footwork, who shoots close to 60% from the field, closer to 40%, is not anywhere near where UCLA wants her, where she wants to play. And the fact that they turn it over so much trying to force feed her in the post, that combined with just a lack of efficiency from the line, generally speaking, at some cases, although this year she has shot decently, especially in the first game against USC from the free throw line. She shot close to 40% from the field. And that is not going to cut it for Lauren Betts, who has posted much better numbers. Against Wisconsin just a couple days ago, Lauren Betts went 11 of 12. And I'm not really even going to point. I made my case about the travel of the Big Ten schedule. If you want to hear my rant, if you're going to be like, Zach, but UCLA traveled. Go listen to another episode I did a couple of days ago where it says Big Ten travel sucks. All right. I'm not going to hear about the travel. I already whined and complained about that. This is specifically about the game where what? Did USC have more days to prepare? No. USC came out and they dominated. All right. If you want to go make the travel argument, go watch the podcast where I've spent a whole episode talking, discussing about how it's, just screwy for both UCLA and USC. And did USC get the benefit of this week? Sure. But Lauren Betts in 2 games against USC at home and on the road has shot not as good, got some offensive rebounds, but also had 5 turnovers against USC this last time, and then 4 turnovers against USC in the first matchup. So that's 9 turnovers to 10 made field goals. And yes, she's had some rebounds, but then the biggest moment in the game at USC happened when she was off the floor. You had UCLA struggling to get her the basketball, her own individual 9 turnovers, and JuJu having more blocks than Lauren Betts. Lauren Betts had more of her shots blocked by JuJu Watkins in this last game plus than she has had blocks in the games against USC for the most part. All right. Between the 2 games, JuJu had more blocks of Lauren Betts shots than Lauren Betts had blocks combined in the 2 games. 3 to 4 JuJu blocks of just Lauren Betts alone. If that's not domination by a smaller guard on a UCLA center, that just erases any National Player of the Year award consideration. Now, it's one thing to be the 1, 2, or 3. She's still one of the most unstoppable forces. But let's get back to the point at hand. Against USC, she has struggled with the basketball. Against Oregon, had technical foul, shot 40%, less than 10 rebounds, a lot of turnovers, and 4 personal fouls, including a tech. So she didn't shoot her best when UCLA played pretty poorly in Eugene leading into the USC game. They didn't play as well, and she shot one of her worst performances. Now, she did have a game against Minnesota where she only had 5 shots, made 3 of them, but had a lot of assists, a career high in assists. So I think that's efficient play by her. Shot pretty bad against USC twice and Oregon. Now let's go look at the Washington game in early December. The first game UCLA played in the Big Ten Conference, technically against Washington. She did play 32 minutes, 10 of 16. But if you look at the lowest rebounding output she had, it was against Washington. Now, if you're like, she was shooting well, Zach, okay, they played well. Tied for the fewest amount of rebounds she's had in an individual game. So you look at 3 teams who UCLA played last year and its game plan once, twice, maybe 3 times in the last year plus or more in certain cases. Those teams in certain statistical categories where Lauren Betts has dominated, whether it's the rebounding, shooting well, not turning it over, blocking shots. Some of those you've seen some of her worst performances in categories like rebounding and shooting against teams they've played. So against coaches who know how to coach up against it, UCLA isn't succeeding. Is this a Lauren Betts problem? Is this the players' problem? Or is this back and stemming up to Lindsay Gottlieb got her players better and ready for this matchup, more confident, better prepared than Corey Close, who said the players didn't do their jobs? Okay, yes, that is the case. You do need the players like London Jones to shoot much better. Kiki Rice, when there's a faster, taller guard in the game, like JuJu Watkins, who is not necessarily going to have that one-on-one matchup all the time, but can come from the weak side, help swat shots away. Kiki Rice didn't shoot that well. Gabriela Jaquez, Gabs, hasn't done a lot lately, and she's the starter. Dugalich, it's 21 minutes as a starting option, 6 points, hit a couple of threes, but UCLA got outplayed in those categories. You had 16 turnovers, so between the 2 games, almost 40 turnovers, and you're telling me that's a winning formula for a team that I wholeheartedly believed was number 1 in the country? Can't say that anymore now. Can. I'm not sure how many teams are above them, but they are not the number 1 team in the country. Now, they can still go beat USC. USC is not unbeatable. No. All right? If you look at the Big Ten standings, USC has gone on the road and lost to the number 11 team in the Big Ten. That was Iowa. Now, UCLA struggled to beat them too. That's how deep the conference is. That, okay, in some years of women's college basketball, the best teams can't lose. That is not the case this year. Just about every team has lost twice. Some's to a good opponent, UCLA in this case to USC. Okay, they can meet again in a week, and I'd love to see how UCLA recovers and rebounds and hopefully takes the focus into the Big Ten tournament. Between the men's team and the women's team, the UCLA women need this Big Ten tournament title a lot more than Mick Cronin, who would love to go one and done, just get ready for the NCAA tournament, have a lot more rest. To the Corey Close, this is important to get a number 1 seed and not get stuck at a 2 seed or a 1 seed and go all the way to the East Coast. All right, you want to go play in Spokane. Now, it'll be weird watching USC be a 1 seed on the other side, which I think with this win and their win over UConn, 3 of the strongest wins in the country for that team across town, they are solidified as a 1 seed and now have a case to be the number 1 overall team in the country, which I would like to say is they're probably better than Texas, whatever. UCLA, you go back to them, nobody in their lineup shot better than 50%. So USC swarmed them defensively, has forced UCLA turnovers, which they've struggled with more than just the USC game. They have come in and been a turnover-prone team and generally gotten away with it. In this game and these 2 games against USC, no. When JuJu Watkins was off the floor, JuJu in this game played 38 minutes. She sat for 2 minutes, and USC extended the lead. You sometimes see those numbers of plus minus. That's when UCLA should be hurting all the other teams plus minus when their best players off the floor. JuJu scored 30 points, had 5 assists, had a combined 5 blocks and steals. So you talk about teammate helpers, buckets, and only 2 turnovers. She shot a lot of threes, but hit some clutch ones. And while UCLA kept her less than 10 free throws, they also just didn't turn over the basketball. And USC at times has been turnover prone. JuJu has been, and sometimes inefficient. Nope, not against UCLA. And there are times when you look at numbers and you feel like, all right, maybe this star player is overrated. But when the lights shine the brightest, she's going to be the one making the faces in the camera and saying, all right, I'm going to flex my skills, my muscles on national television. And we're going to make sure that everybody knows who the best player in the country is. Kiki Iriafen played much, much better than she did in the game 1. Almost a double-double, 17-9. Pretty much dominating a former Stanford teammate in Lauren Betts. And then Ohoffen hit a 3. You had Avery Howe hitting some late threes to just kind of embarrass the Bruins. But it's not like USC has a lot of players making shots. 1, 2, 3, 4 players hitting threes. You've got a couple players late hitting some buckets. But UCLA is so much deeper. They have 7 players who can legitimately score on this team. 7 in a variety of ways, whether it's putbacks, layups, 3-point shots. The Bruins have a deeper offensive tool bed. They have so much more. And they completely fail because they force feed it to Betts. UCLA is going to have to win without giving the ball to Betts every single time. And when she does, she has to be a lot more efficient against this team where Kiki Iriafen played so much better. And then you mix in Jones not shooting well, Jaquez. Tamia Gardner hit an early 3, nothing after that, after the first quarter, in only 15 minutes. I know some of it is who's the defender on a JuJu Watkins that is exploding against UCLA. 68 combined points against the Bruins. That's a 34-point per game average against UCLA, who should be the number 2, number 3, top 4 team in the country. And she is just eating them for breakfast and laughing like jokes after dinner. It's frustrating. You can't just turn it over and have careless turnovers, and the Bruins need much better output from the players that are stars and definitely from the depth. Because the Bruins assembled a roster that is capable of winning a national championship this year before Sienna Betsky gets here, before Charlize Ledger-Walker is healthy enough to play next year. They are capable enough of going on a run and beating USC in the Big Ten tournament and going on a run in the NCAA tournament. But this does give you a cause of concern. Why in the second matchup in a home game with a sold-out crowd did they come out a little skittish, a little too scared to play with all that energy and passion that they're like, we want to come in. We want to beat South Carolina. We want to beat South Carolina. Well, maybe you're too worried about beating South Carolina in November when you need to beat SC in February and March, and eventually, hopefully in April. There's still time to right the ship. The story is not finished. They can hand out the National Player of the Year awards, but the national championship has still yet to be awarded. So as long as March is getting mad and April's acting foolish, there is still a chance for the Bruins to be a bit ghoulish and rise from the dead. In this case, they're not dead. They are certainly alive for everything. It's frustrating. And if they do meet in a week against USC, there must be a better output because they cannot lose a third time at risk of ruining their season. Now they can go on a run and hope somebody gets knocked out, right? LSU won the title beating Caitlin Clark in Iowa when South Carolina got knocked out early by Caitlin Clark in Iowa. So there's a case where UCLA might not even have to face a team like USC in the NCAA tournament. You could argue as to who's more vulnerable to losing earlier in the NCAA tournament. That's not the discussion. The team that is now believed to be better won the 2 games at home and on the road. The only time UCLA has faced a team twice this year. The only time, and you could argue they played much worse the second time. And if you are on this podcast, this episode, commenting about travel, I'm going to tell you, you did not watch the episode. Go watch the other episode where I complained about travel and made mention of it. This was sheerly basketball. And USC came to play, and unfortunately, Reggie Miller and all the cheering on UCLA Bruins fans went home with an empty pit in their stomach and just like, dude, really? There's times to fix it. There's maybe a new renewed focus. And that's what's entertaining. You get to the beginning of March, feel one way, and to the end of March, magic, one shining moment, anything can change, and you can rewrite your history. Go look at Kim Mulkey and LSU. Go look at Caitlin Clark versus South Carolina. Go look at UCLA, hopefully this year, at the end of the season in early April 2025. If this team gets bounced early in the tournament, that would be disappointment right away. Minimum Final Four for this team. But we can see the mistakes and the holes and the glaring errors they must fix. That doesn't just include forcing the ball down low or an inefficient performance by her in Lauren Betts, which isn't always the case. You can't pin all the pressure, everything on her. Everybody, the coaching staff, the players, everything has to get much better if they want to even be considered to be a 1 seed, a contender, a team that even goes on a run, which they are better than everybody in the first 4 games they will play. They will be better, arguably the first 5. Now, can they do it? Those are 2 completely different things. They know what they need. They go back to the drawing board. They got a full week pretty much to practice. They do get that double bye because they handled business, unlike the other team, the UCLA men. But either way, pretty sucky weekend of UCLA basketball. Hopefully the men can go beat Northwestern, salvage the end of the road trip, and then we can have a fun second or full first week of March, can end up with good vibes, good feelings, and we head into conference tournament week and selection Sunday, into the days with more sunlight out, with more smiles and more fun preparing for the rest of the year. All right. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place than to get it with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place those live bets throughout the game, and even if you miss the opening tip-off, you can check in on that fourth quarter comeback and stay in on the action. If you want to get that bigger payout, combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Things like getting the app. That's super easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. New FanDuel customers get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, it's going to do it for us here on Locked On UCLA. We'll discuss more UCLA basketball, men's and women's. We'll talk about what's been going on in the spring sports, and hey, we'll give some football updates as well. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.